Hello, my dear viewers, and the rest of the listeners. Welcome to this presentation in which we are going to discuss or learn about the topic conflict management under the title Manage Your Conflicts for Peaceful Coexistence. My name is Meme JM, or you can simply call me Emily Swap. In this presentation, we are going to look at the importance of managing conflicts, the types of conflicts, the causes of conflicts, the phases of a conflict, the techniques or approaches to conflict management, conflict resolution process, the strategies to avoid conflicts in the workplace, the tips for managing and resolving conflicts, and conflict management skills. Let us commence by looking at the meaning of conflict. A conflict is a situation in which you or someone else perceive a threat, whether or not the threat is real. It is an expressed struggle between you and someone else who you share something in common with due to perceived incompatible goals, scarce resources, and interference from others in achieving your goals. It can also be defined as a difference of opinion or thought regarding thought process, attitudes, understanding, interests, wishes, ideas, desires, requirements, and even sometimes perceptions. It can arise between you and your partner, your work peers, your friends, your family members, amongst others. Therefore, understanding the basic concepts of conflicts that may occur in your daily environment can help you avoid disagreements or learn the best way to deal with them. When you are involved in a conflict, you are bound to be engaged in heated arguments, physical abuses, and definitely loss of peace and harmony. A conflict can actually change your relationships and even turn your friends into your foes or into your enemies. In fact, even if you have a small conflict, it can turn into a large war and rifts amongst you and other people if it is not controlled at the correct time, thus leading to major unrest and disharmony. When you are able to address the sources of conflicts and find a means of resolving a given conflict or of continuing it in less destructive forms, such as an action is said to be conflict resolution. It is important to note that a conflict is a normal part of any healthy relationship because some disagreements are bound to arise once in a while. For this reason, learning how to deal with a conflict is important so that you don't have to be avoiding it. This is because if you mismanage a conflict, it can cause great harm to your relationship. But if you are able to handle it in a respectful, positive way, it can provide you with an opportunity to strengthen the bond between you and others. Therefore, by learning the skills for conflict resolution through this presentation, you will be able to keep your personal and professional relationships strong and growing. Usually, you respond to conflicts based on your perceptions of the situation, not necessarily to an objective review of the facts. So, your perceptions are influenced by your life experiences, culture, values, and beliefs. It is important to note that due to the fact that conflicts trigger strong emotions. If you are not comfortable with your emotions or able to manage them in times of stress, you may not be able to resolve conflicts successfully. For your disagreement to become a conflict, there needs to be the following. Number one, some element of communication. Number two, your well-being need to depend on the other party in some way without necessarily both of you having equal powers. Number three, you perceive that your goals are incompatible, meaning that they cannot both be met. Number four, you are competing for resources with someone else. Number five, you perceive that the other party is interfering with the achievement of your goals. So, what is the importance of managing conflicts in your life? You can confidently say that you are managing a conflict if you are engaged in a process of limiting the negative aspects of conflict while increasing the positive aspects of the conflict. The aim of conflict management is therefore to enhance your learning and your outcomes, including effectiveness or performance in whatever that you do, whether as an individual, a group, or in an organization. So, if you can be able to manage your conflicts, it can improve your individual and group outcomes. Conflict management involves the steps that you take to prevent the conflict at the right time and also help you to resolve it in an effective and smooth manner. This is because no conflict can start on its own if there has been no event or an incident to trigger the same. So, through conflict management, you can be able to actually find out the possible events which can start a conflict and try your level best to avoid the same or to avoid them. Conflict management is therefore the long-term management of intractable conflicts. We can also say that conflict management entails a variety of ways by which you and other people handle grievances, standing up for what you or they consider to be right and against what you or they consider to be wrong. It is thus an ongoing process of resolving conflicts that may never end. One of the best ways to help you cope with the problems that interfere with your effectiveness wherever you are is to listen to yourself and others with sympathy and understanding. So, experiencing a conflict anytime or anywhere is not a bad thing as long as you can resolve it effectively because it can lead to your personal and professional growth. This is because conflicts are an opportunity for your growth. When you are able to resolve a conflict in your relationship, it builds trust. You can feel secure knowing that your relationship can survive challenges and disagreements. So, effective conflict resolution can make the difference between the positive and negative outcomes in your life. The following are therefore some advantages or benefits that you can gain when you resolve a conflict in your life. Number one, it helps you to gain insight on how you can be able to achieve your own goals without undermining those of other people. Number two, it also helps you develop a stronger emotional or mutual respect for others and renew your faith in your ability to work together with others harmoniously. Number three, it helps you to be able to examine your goals in close detail, helping you understand the things that are most important to you, sharpening your focus and enhancing your effectiveness. The following are therefore some consequences that the conflicts which you have not handled effectively may have in your life. Number one, you develop personal dislike for conflicting goals. Number two, it can lead to a breakdown of your teamwork. Number three, it can lead to wastage of your talent due to disengagement from your work. Number four, it can lead to a vicious downward spiral of negativity and recrimination. Number five, it can lead to disrespect and unnecessary tensions. It is therefore important that you are able to manage any conflicts that you may experience because, number one, it can go a long way in strengthening the bond among you and whoever that you relate with whenever you are. Because problems discussed and problems handled together are problems that have solved. And for this reason, when you are able to manage your conflicts, this management of the conflict can go a long way in strengthening the bond among you and whoever that you relate with whenever you are, and a half of the problems will automatically disappear. This is because when you are able to manage conflicts, you are also able to reduce the stress and the tensions of those around you. Number two, it plays an important role in your personal life by reducing the tussles and the fights amongst you and your friends because conflicts can spoil your relationships and increase your list of enemies. This is because you need friends who will always stand by you when you need them. It is for this reason that you should avoid conflicts at home as it spoils the ambience and spreads negativity. Therefore, with the conflict management skill, you can be able to prevent fallout between you and your family members, your friends and relatives, and also make your life peaceful and stress-free. It is also important that you always avoid blame game because it can never help you, but instead, it can make your life miserable. In addition, there is no idea that can ever be implemented if you are always fighting amongst yourselves. Number three, conflict management can help you find a middle way, an alternative to any problem and the successful implementation of the idea. That is why it is important that you always address problems at the right time in order to prevent conflicts and its adverse effects at a later stage. Through conflict management skills, you can be able to explore all the possible reasons to worry, which might later lead to a big problem, and try to resolve it as soon as possible. Number four, conflict management is also very important to you because it is always wise to prevent a fight at the first place rather than facing its negative consequences. So, through conflict management, stress disappears. You feel motivated, happy, and the world definitely becomes a much better place for you to stay in it as a result of conflict management. So, what types of conflicts you may experience in your life or in your day-to-day situations or encounters? The first conflict is called relationship conflict. You may experience this type of conflict when you experience strong negative emotions, misperceptions or stereotypes, poor communication or miscommunication, or repetitive negative behaviors. For you to be able to manage this conflict, you should support the safe and balanced expression of perspectives and emotions for acknowledgement. Number 2 is what we call data conflict. You may experience this type of conflict when you lack information that is necessary for you to make wise decisions. You are misinformed. You disagree on which data is relevant. You interpret information differently, or you have competing assessment procedures. This type of conflict is caused by poor communication between you and the other people. The third type of conflict is called interest. You can experience this type of conflict when you have competition over perceived incompatible needs, or when you believe that in order for you to satisfy your needs, the needs and the interests of your opponent must be sacrificed. You may also experience this type of conflict when you have substantive issues, procedural issues, and psychological issues. So, for you to be able to resolve this type of conflict, you and the other parties must be assisted to define and express your interests, may be jointly addressed. It's best resolved through the maximizing integration of the parties' respective interests, positive intentions, and desires. The fourth type of conflict is called structural conflict. You may experience this type of conflict due to forces that are external to you and whoever that you are in dispute with. In such a situation, you and whoever that you are in conflict with should be helped to appreciate the external forces and the constraints bearing upon you and the other party. You and the other party should therefore appreciate that the conflict has an external source, and therefore both you and the other party should come together to jointly address the imposed difficulties. The fifth type of conflict is called value conflict. You can experience this type of conflict when you have perceived or actual incompatible belief systems. Values are the beliefs that you use to give meaning to your life. You thus experience value disputes when you attempt to force your set of values on others, or others try to force their set of values on you, with none of you giving room for divergent beliefs. To solve this conflict, it is helpful to avoid forcing your personal values and beliefs on others, and support each other or each participant's expression of their values and beliefs. Sometimes, based on where the conflicts take place, the conflicts that you experience can be categorized as workplace conflicts, family or domestic conflicts, amongst others. In addition, the conflicts that you may experience can also be classified into the following 4 types. The first type is called interpersonal conflict. This refers to a conflict between you and another person. This occurs typically due to the fact that you have a different personality from the rest, and the other people are also different from you, which usually results to incompatible choices and options or opinions. Apparently, interpersonal conflict is a natural occurrence which can eventually help you in your personal growth and also in developing your relationships with others. In addition, coming up with the adjustments is necessary for managing this type of conflict. However, when your interpersonal conflicts gets too destructive, it is important to call a mediator who can help you resolve the conflict. Number 2 is intrapersonal conflict. An intrapersonal conflict is a conflict which occurs within yourself. It is thus a conflict between you and yourself or your inner person. The experience takes place in your mind. Therefore, intrapersonal conflict is a type of conflict that is psychological, involving your thoughts, values, principles, and emotions. Intrapersonal conflict may come in different scales, from the simpler mundane ones, like deciding on what to wear, as well as making serious decisions, such as choosing your career path. Furthermore, this type of conflict can be quite difficult to handle if you find that it is hard to decipher your inner struggles. It leads to restlessness and uneasiness, or can even cause depression. In such occasions, it would be best for you to seek a way to let go the anxiety through communicating your issues with others. Eventually, when you find yourself out of the situation, you can become more empowered as a person. Therefore, the experience that you gain from such a conflict can evoke a positive change in your life, which will help you in your own personal growth and development. Number 3 is what we call intergroup conflict. An intergroup conflict is a type of conflict that happens among you and the other members of your team or your group or institution or even an organization. But simply put, intergroup conflict is that conflict which happens amongst you and your team members, or the members of your specific group. This is normally as a result of incompatibilities and misunderstandings amongst you and the members of your group. It arises from interpersonal disagreements due to you and your team members having different personalities, which may lead to tension or differences in views and ideas. Within your team, a conflict can be helpful in coming up with decisions which will eventually allow you and the rest of the team members reach their objectives as a team. However, if the degree of conflict disrupts harmony among you and your team members, then some serious guidance from a different party will be needed for it to be settled. The fourth type is called intergroup conflict. This is a conflict that takes place when a misunderstanding arises among your team and other teams within your organization, institution, etc. And my dear listeners and viewers, when I use the term organization, I refer to any group or groupings where you belong. Such groups can include clubs, societies, movements, religions, churches, institutions, amongst the others. For instance, one department or a group may come in conflict with another one because one group feels or one department feels that it is being denied some resources, while the other group or department is being provided with the same resources. This conflict thus arises due to the varied sets of goals and the interests of these different groups. In addition, competition amongst these groups can also contribute to the rise of intergroup conflict. There are other factors which fuel this type of conflict. Some of these factors may include a rivalry in resources or the boundaries set by a group to others, which establishes their own identity as a team. So, what are the causes of conflicts in your life? Conflicts can arise from a large or a small difference between you and another person or a group. It occurs whenever you disagree over your values, motivations, perceptions, ideas, or desires. Sometimes these differences appear trivial, but when a conflict triggers your strong emotional feelings, a deep personal need is often at the core of the problem. These needs can be a need for you to feel safe and secure, a need to feel respected and valued, or even a need for greater closeness and intimacy. Your needs and those of the other parties play important roles in the long-term success of your relationships, and thus each deserves respect and consideration. In personal relationships, a lack of understanding about differing needs can result in distance, arguments, and breakups. There are several causes of conflicts in your life, such as when you are required to engage in an activity that is incongruent with your needs or interests, when you hold behavioral preferences, the satisfaction of which is incompatible with another person's implementation of his or her preferences, when you want some mutually desirable resource that is in short supply, such that the wants of all parties involved may not be satisfied fully. Number 4, when you possess attitudes, values, skills, and goals that are salient in directing your behavior, but are perceived to be exclusive of the attitudes, values, skills, and goals that are held by the others. Number 5, when you have partially exclusive behavioral preferences regarding your joint actions. Number 6, when you are interdependent in the performance of functions or activities. In your workplace or in your place of work or even at home, conflicts characterized by bitter disputes occur due to differing needs, sometimes resulting in broken deals, fewer profits, and even lost jobs. When you recognize the legitimacy of conflicting needs and become willing to examine them in an environment of compassionate understanding, it can open for you pathways to creative problem solving, team building, and improved relationships. In addition, the other causes of conflicts in your place of work may include, but not limited to, the following. Number 1 is lack of information. Number 2 is when you and the other members of your staff have skill deficits. Number 3 is ineffective organizational or institutional or group systems. Number 4 is ineffective conflict management systems. And number 5 is misuse of alternative dispute resolution processes. Effective conflict resolution processes should emphasize talking things out effectively early in your dispute, using mediation before grievances or litigation handling positions further, conflict resolution coaching for and by educated managers, and training that supports your real behavior change. The following are therefore some of the many causes of conflicts between you and the other parties or other persons. Number 1 is poor or lack of communication, or what we call poor or lack of good communication, miscommunication. Number 2 is presence of strong negative emotions. Number 3 is misconceptions and misinterpretations. Number 4 is lack of necessary information. Number 5 is when you are wanting others to sacrifice their needs for your own personal benefit. Number 6 is not being allowed to express your interests. Number 7 is fighting over limited resources. Number 8 is unexpected change in your organization, amongst others. Number 9 is your perceived or incompatible belief systems, such as in terms of values and beliefs. So, what are the phases of a conflict? Or which stages does a disagreement, arguments arise to become a conflict? Most of the conflicts that you face have 5 phases. These are, number 1, prelude to conflict. Prelude to conflict, my dear viewers and listeners, entail all the factors which possibly arise a conflict among you and other individuals. These include lack of coordination, differences in your interests, dissimilarity in your cultural, religion, and educational background, amongst the others. Number 2 is triggering event. This is an occurrence of an action or event which trigger the conflict. This includes critiquing another for failure to do something, and difference emanating from your cultural background, etc., or even saying a statement that is provocative or uttering a word that may provoke some emotions. Number 3 is initiation phase. This phase is actually the phase when the conflict has already begun. At this point, you engage your other person or the other party in heated arguments, abuses, verbal disagreements, etc. And those are all warning alarms which indicate that the fight is already on. Number 4 is what we call differentiation phase. In this phase, you and the other party that you are in conflict with start to voice out your differences against each other. Therefore, each of you starts to raise the reasons for the conflict. The purpose of this task is to find a way of resolving the conflict. Number 5 is what we call a resolution phase. At this phase, the parties, that is you and those that we're in conflict with, realize that the conflict is not taking you anywhere. And for that reason, you therefore decide together to calm down and try to compromise to some extent in order for you to resolve the conflict as soon as you can. Therefore, in this phase, you and the other parties involved explore the various options in order to resolve the conflict. Once you have made a decision of wanting to solve a conflict, or when you want to manage a conflict, there are phases also that this process should go through. So, what are the phases of the conflict management life cycle? Number one, we call it the proactive phase. This is the phase in which you do things and take steps to prevent a conflict from happening in the first place. The first step to take is to scan the environment or constantly listen and watch for issues that could potentially threaten your life, family, institution, group, or organization. You are able to track issues when you focus on that issue as you monitor the media and social media heavily. You can be said to be managing issues when you make plans to handle any possible threatening issue. This phase is all about preparing for the worst and being ready should a crisis occur. Number two is the strategic phase. This is the phase in which you recognize that an issue has emerged and you pay immediate attention to the matter, including engaging a professional on the matter. At this phase, you invoke 3 key strategies. These strategies are, number one, you pay attention to the danger or risk or relay it to the audience and those involved in order to prevent further damage that may emanate from the danger. Number two, you engage yourself in conflict positioning, which allows you or the organization to position yourself or itself favorably on the issue so that the damage to you or to the organization can be reduced. Number three, at this stage, if the issue has already been elevated to a crisis and the worst may happen, you now engage yourself in a crisis management plan in order to help you deal with the situation and help you preserve your image and operations, including those of your organization, family, institution, etc. Number three is called the reactive phase. At this phase, or at this point, you reach this phase when the issue or the crisis happens and it begins impacting on you, your relationship, your family, your team, your organization, etc. This is the point at which you need to manage the crisis, communicate about it concerning where the issue is, and also communicate to those other involved parties and the other people or the public based on the need. The fourth phase is called the recovery phase. This is the phase which happens during the aftermath of the crisis, and it calls for such things as reputation management and image restoration, both of which help you, your team, your family, your institution or organization to be back on track and in good standing with others or the public, even though these efforts may not always work, and your institution or organization may have to continuously work around its negative public image if it does not cause permanent or irreversible damage. So, what are the techniques or approaches that you can use to manage conflict. The first one, or the first technique that you can apply in order to manage a conflict is called accommodation. This is a situation where you surrender your own needs and wishes in order to accommodate the needs and the wishes of the other party. It is your willingness to meet the needs of others at the expense of your own needs. It is having to deal with a problem with an element of self-sacrifice. You set aside your own concerns in order to maintain peace in the situation. Therefore, you yield to what the other party wants, displaying a form of selflessness. This might come as an immediate solution to the issue. However, it also brings about a forced manner of dealing with the problem. This can be disruptive if there is a need to come up with a more sound and a creative way out of the problem. This behavior will be most efficient if you are the one in the wrong, as it can come as a form of conciliation. However, this is not a good approach to managing a conflict, especially when you are not the one who was on the wrong, because it can leave you feeling as a loser while the other party feels to be the winner. The second approach or technique is called avoidance. In this approach, you avoid or postpone the conflict by ignoring it, changing the subject, delegating controversial decisions, accepting default decisions, and not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings. It is appropriate when victory is impossible, when the controversy is trivial, or when someone else is in a better position to solve the problem. In this approach, you withdraw from the conflict and deal with the problem through a passive attitude. You use avoiding approach mostly when you perceive that you may have a negative edge that may outweigh the positive outcome from the conflict. In employing this technique, you end up ignoring the problem, thinking that the problem will resolve itself, which may not even happen. This approach might only be applicable in certain situations, but not in all situations. This is because this approach would mean that you neglect your responsibility that comes with it, while the other individual or individuals involved might think that you are neglecting the problem. That's why it is better to confront the problem before it gets worse. The third technique or approach is called collaboration. In this approach, you work together with whoever you are in conflict with in order to find a mutually beneficial solution. That is, arrive at a win-win situation. This method tries to meet both of your needs by cooperating effectively and acknowledging that everyone is important. It's useful when you want to bring together a variety of viewpoints to get the best solution, or when you or the group has experienced previous conflicts. Collaborating aims to find a solution to the conflict through cooperation or cooperating with the other parties that are involved. Hence, Communication is an important part of this strategy. In this mechanism, effort is exerted in digging into the issue to identify your needs and the needs of the other concerned party without removing their respective interests from the picture. When you collaborate with those that you are in conflict with, you aim to come up with a successful resolution creatively without compromising their own satisfactions. In fact, this is the best approach for resolving the conflict because you all come up with a solution that is acceptable to all. The fourth technique is called compromise. This is an approach in which you engage a third party to come in and help you resolve a conflict which you and the other party are not able to do while alone. The problem which is causing your conflict is brought into the open in the presence of a third person or a third party who can help you and the other party reach an agreement. It tries to find a solution that will at least partially satisfy everyone. So, each of you in a conflict is expected to give up something. This approach is useful when the cost of the conflict is higher than the cost of losing ground, when equal strength opponents are at a standstill, and when there is a deadline that is looming. Therefore, compromising is about coming up with a resolution that would be acceptable to you and to the other parties that are involved. In this case, you are willing to sacrifice your own sets of goals as long as the other party is also willing and ready to do the same. Hence, this approach can be viewed as a mutual give and take scenario where you and the other parties submit the same amount of investment for the problem to be solved. A disadvantage of this strategy is that since these parties find an easy way around the problem, the possibility of coming up with a more creative way for a solution may be neglected. The fifth technique or approach is called competition. In this approach, you or the other party asserts your own viewpoint at the potential expense of the other party. You and the other party take a firm stand because each of you know what you want, thus operating from a position of power. It can leave you and the other party feeling bruised, unsatisfied, and resentful when used in less urgent or emergency situations. This approach involves authoritative and assertive behaviors. In this style, whoever is aggressive between you and the other party aims to instill pressure on the other party in order to achieve his or her goal. It includes the use of whatever means to attain what you or the other party thinks is right. It may be appropriate in some situations, but it shouldn't come to a point wherein the aggressor becomes too unreasonable. Dealing with the conflict with an open mind is always vital for a solution to be met. The ability to successfully resolve a conflict needs your ability to, number one, manage stress quickly while remaining alert and calm. By staying calm, you can accurately read and interpret the verbal and non-verbal communication. Number two, control your emotions and behavior. When you are in control of your emotions, you can communicate your needs without threatening, frightening, or punishing others. Number three, pay attention to the feelings being expressed as well as the spoken ones of others. Number four, be aware of and respectful of differences. By avoiding disrespectful ones and actions, you can almost always resolve a problem faster. So, what is conflict resolution process? Number one, set the scene by agreeing on the guiding rules for the process and by letting each person present his or her perceptions of the issue. Number two, always gather information by getting the underlying interest, needs, and the concerns by asking each to present his or her views while respecting each other's opinions. Number three is agree on the problem that you are trying to solve before you can find a mutually acceptable solution and understanding what each person sees as the problem. Number four, brainstorm on the possible solutions by letting each person have a fair input in generating solutions. You should always be open to ideas, including those ones that you have never considered before. Number five is to negotiate the solution so as to arrive at a mutually satisfactory solution that is clear to all and acceptable to all. However, if there are real differences in positions, always find a win-win solution by applying the win-win negotiation in order to come up with a resolution that to some extent satisfies everyone. The key guiding principles when resolving a conflict are: number one, always remain calm, regardless of how provoking the situation may be. Number two, always be patient. And number three, always have respect for the other party. The following are therefore some healthy ways of managing and resolving conflicts. Number one is your capacity to recognize and respond to the things that matter to the other person. Number two is remaining calm, non-defensive, and having respectful reactions. Number three is being ready to forgive and forget, and to move past the conflict without holding resentments or anger, or without reminding the other party about what is already past. Number four is the ability to seek compromise and avoiding punishing. Number five is a belief that facing a conflict head-on is always the best thing for both sides. While the following are some of the unhealthy ways of managing and resolving conflicts, or my dear viewers and the rest of the listeners, the following are some ways that are not advisable to be applied when you want to manage or resolve a conflict. Number one is an inability to recognize and respond to the things that matter to the other person. Number 2 is being explosive, angry, hurtful, and resentful, or having explosive, angry, hurtful, and resentful reactions. Number 3 is an inability to compromise or see the other person's side. Number 4 is the withdrawal of love, resulting in rejection, isolation, shaming, and fear of abandonment. Number 5 is the fear and avoidance of conflict, the expectation of bad outcomes. The following are therefore 5 steps that you can be able to use or apply in order to manage a conflict. Number 1 is being anticipative. Always take time to obtain information that can lead to a conflict. Number 2 is to prevent. Develop strategies before the conflict occurs. Number 3 is to identify. If it is personal or procedural, move to quickly manage the issue. Number 4 is manage. Remember that conflict is emotional. Number 5 is resolve. In this case, react without blaming, and you will learn through the dialogue. So what are the strategies to avoid conflicts in your workplace? The following are some strategies that you can apply in order to avoid conflicts in your place of work. Number 1, always remember that every individual has his or her own style of working and reacting to any particular situation, and therefore problems are bound to come when individuals are working together. Number 2, never leave any problem unattended, as a small problem can eventually become a major reason to worry later. The problems must be addressed on an open platform, and all the related employees or concerned employees must be invited in the discussion. Number 3, you should never discuss any problem separately with the individuals, as the other person might feel neglected. Always prefer dealing with issues and handling issues and the discussions concerning any individual together in a boardroom in order to discuss the problems and find a solution to them. Number 4, never always depend on verbal communications. Official communications must be preferably through emails, while marking a copy or making a carbon copy to all the participants or those who are concerned, as this is more reliable and transparent. Avoid discussing individuals alone. Avoid talking about a member of your staff concerning his or her weaknesses, yet you are not involving this party, yet you don't want to make the issue open to the concerned party. It is therefore important that instead of involving yourselves and discussing a person verbally, talk with the person or communicate with the concerned parties through writing, because that is a clear evidence that you, of course, know what you are talking about, and you are seeking for clarification or for some information from the concerned staff. Number 5, maintain transparency at all levels, and the superiors must be easily available to the subordinates to avoid confusions. Gossips and backbiting must be avoided at the workplace, and especially between the superiors and their staff, as this is considered seriously and professional, and it can lead to conflicts among individuals. Number 6, always be straightforward and learn to express your views in a convincing way. Never be partial at workplaces. Do not support anyone just because he or she is your friend. Support him or her when he or she is right, and correct him or her when he or she is wrong, regardless of the relationship that you may have with him or her. Don't spare your friend at the expense of another. Number 7, understand the other individual as well. Don't just impose your ideas on others. Instead, consider their views too. The superior must know the strengths of his or her team members and should assign the responsibilities keeping in mind about their interests and their specialities. Don't assign a staff a certain responsibility, yet you know very well that this person is not competent in handling the issue. Assign your staff or your subordinates responsibilities, duties, and tasks based on their competencies, based on their abilities, based on their interests, but not just based on your own whims as the superior or your own whims as the boss. Number 8, practice effective communication because it plays a very important role in avoiding conflicts at workplaces. Be very clear and precise in your communication. Never adopt a casual attitude at work, as it would strictly go against you. Number 9, never deliver any speech or presentation at a noisy place, as no one will be able to understand what the other person intends to communicate, and this may result in misunderstandings. Number 10, develop the habit of using planners to avoid forgetting important dates and tasks. You assign your staff a certain duty or responsibility and you forget that you did it. You organize for a certain activity or you inform your staff to do something or your colleague to do something, and then you forget it altogether. To avoid this, because it can cause conflicts in the place of work, always develop a habit of using a planner. Have a notebook. Have a clear duty rota, which is a document that you and even the rest of the staff can be able to access at any time when it need to be. And this can help you avoid forgetting important dates and tasks that you are supposed to implement. Number 11, do not criticize or make fun of your colleagues. If, for example, one is not wearing a tie in a desired way, or one is not wearing a skirt in a desired way, or one is not wearing a shirt in a desired way, don't laugh at him or her. Let him or her know the correct way to wear it. So if somebody is not wearing the way he or she is supposed to be wearing, don't criticize or make fun of this colleague. Approach the colleague with confidence. Inform him or her you are dressing in a wrong way and correct him or her. Don't just criticize without giving the way forward. This will make this person feel happy and look up to you in the future. Number 12, never, ever rely on politics in the office, as this spoils the environment completely. This, I mean, my dear viewers and listeners, that don't allow members of the staff to come to your office and the only thing they can do is to speak about what somebody was doing, where somebody was, what he or she was doing, what they ate at night, what they ate. That is not your business in the office. Avoid such politics in the office and make use of that office to do what that office is supposed to be doing. You hear somebody someone done, and then you just rely on that, and you make your office or your place of work to be a place of politics. My dear viewers and my dear listeners, learn to separate personal lives from the office life. When you are in the office or in the place of work, discuss, talk, and do all that appertains to the job. If you have to discuss an individual, discuss that individual in the context of work, not in the context of private and personal life that has nothing to do with the work. So never ever rely on the politics in the office, whether you are a boss or not. When I use the term office, I'm referring to that work that you have been assigned to do, whether while interacting with others or while managing others. Whether you are at the operational level or at the strategic level or tactical level within the management hierarchy. Never, ever rely on the politics in the place of work, because this can spoil the working environment, make it unconducive, and in addition, bring about conflicts that may interfere with the achievement of that institution's or organization's goals and objectives. Number 13, strictly avoid blame game, as it just adds on to the problems and doesn't provide any solution. Always remember that you will not become an important if you accept your faults. Therefore, if at any time you know very well that you have failed to do something, don't point the fingers on others. Don't blame others. Take it as your mistake. Accept that you have committed a crime. Accept that you have made an error. Accept that you have made a mistake, because no human being is perfect, even the place of work. You are bound to make a mistake, but you are not bound to blame others. You are not supposed to blame others for a mistake that you are the one who has done, and for a mistake that you should take responsibility for. Accepting a mistake does not make you a weak vessel. Accepting a mistake does not make you become useless. In fact, when you accept your mistake, it expresses your strength. It expresses your understanding of yourself, and it is also an acknowledgement that you are a person that is bound to do things in a much better way. And it also expresses your readiness and willingness to change things and avoid repeating such mistakes again. So, defending yourself, even when you are on the wrong, is not right, is not justified. And by doing such, you are becoming an instrument of causing crisis, causing conflicts within your work environment. And when I talk about work environment, my dear listeners and viewers, this can also refer to any place where you are. Wherever you are involved in doing something amongst the others, even at home, even in the church, even in that institution, even in that club, the same applies. So in as much as I'm discussing these points, basing my discussion on a work environment, remember that a work environment can even be your home. A work environment can be even in that church where you have been assigned responsibilities. A work environment can be in that office. It can be that institution. It can be anywhere where people are being involved in execution of certain roles and responsibilities. Number 14, always take initiative to discuss issues without always expecting the other person to come to you and discuss things. If you notice that a person, a member of your staff or your colleague has an issue, you don't need to wait until this person comes to you. Sometimes, some of these individuals, you included, might not have the courage to initiate a certain discussion. When you notice that a member of your staff, your organization, or even your colleague is passing through a certain situation, or even when you hear something about a person Just take an initiative. Approach this person and discuss the issues with him or her. Initiate it, even at times when this staff, this colleague is not having the courage to do it. But as you make this step, do it in a way that will make this person feel appreciated, that will make this person feel honored, that will make this person feel that he or she is loved, that will make this person know that he or she is liked, and that you are not initiating the discussion as a way of provoking him or her, but you are initiating the discussion as a way of helping him or her become better than the way he or she is, or solve a problem that he or she may be passing through. Number 15, always learn to own your responsibilities and never pass blame to your colleagues. If you've been assigned a certain responsibility, or you know that it is your responsibility to do something, don't blame others when such things do not happen. Learn to own your responsibility. Play that role that you're supposed to play. Do that work which you're supposed to do. Don't point the fingers at others. Take your responsibility and own your responsibilities. If you have failed, accept it. Number 16, always keep your personal and professional life separate. You should therefore never carry your problems to your place of work, as it never allows you to concentrate in your work. If you have been annoyed at your home, you have been annoyed by your wife, you have been annoyed by your husband, your children have stepped on you, somebody is pressing you out there, you owe somebody, and then don't take that to your place of work. Learn to separate your professional life with your personal life. Don't take your annoyance, your anger to your colleagues. When they approach you, you abuse them all of a sudden, you are becoming aggressive over nothing, just because there is something that is trailing you behind there. If you have taken debts out there, don't bring your anger to the place of work. If you have fought with your husband or someone or even your wife there, don't take it to the place of work. What am I saying? I am simply saying, if you have issues that are personal, don't bring them to the place of work. If you have heard about something when you are out there, don't start following the same in the place of work. Let your personal problems remain personal and treat your work professionally. So, as an employee, always come first, and therefore you must keep your personal interests on the back burner. Don't use your office as a place for creating relationships and such things. Don't use your responsibility to gain respect or to be able to exploit others. In other words, don't use your office for favors that have nothing to do with your work. When you step in that place of work, leave your other personality behind. Leave your personal life behind. Leave what you had behind. Leave what you had passed through behind, and embrace your work the way you should. In as much as you may be feeling something in your heart and your mind, based on what you have passed through, or based on what you have experienced out there, when you go to the place of work, do the best that you can to embrace what the work entails. Focus your mind on the work and forget about the other issues. But once you step out of the place of work, then wear your other personal life, wear your other dress that portrays what your personal life is all about. And therefore, when you are in the office, when in your place of work, let your office come first and keep your personal interests away from the work. Number 17, learn to trust your colleagues by always approaching the right person and without spreading rumors unnecessarily. Don't be a person who will speak about another person, but when you see the person you're talking about approach or come nearer, you maintain silence all of a sudden and you pretend to be angels. Learn to treat and trust your colleagues equally. If somebody has made a mistake, approach him or her directly. Don't be a person who spreads rumors unnecessarily in the place of work about the other members of staff. Number 18, you should not be too adamant at workplaces, but be a little more adjustable and flexible. If, for example, you had created a duty rota, you had a timetable, but something arises that makes a certain colleague be unable to perform the duties and responsibilities as assigned, don't be so adamant and say that the situation or the status quo must remain. You must be ready to adjust and flexible so that if a new or a certain occurrence takes place, you are able to do and it tells you that I am in a problem and I will not make it on time or I will not make it today. Don't be a person that is so adamant to maintain the status quo, but learn to adjust and then find out later whether what this staff has told you is correct or not. Number 19, every employee must try to compromise to the best possible extent. Number 20, always create a healthy and professional environment at office. This is because differences and problems are bound to arise at workplaces, but steps must be taken at the right time to avoid unnecessary fights and disagreements. Conflict not only spoils the ambience, but it also reduces the productivity of the employees. They feel highly demotivated and don't feel like going to offices. Employees waste all their time and energy, and nothing productive can be expected out of them, and ultimately, the organization is at a loss. So, what are the tips? What tips do you need, my dear viewer and my dear listener, to be able to manage and resolve conflicts? Managing and resolving conflict requires your ability to quickly reduce stress and bring your emotions into balance. You can ensure that the process is as positive as possible by sticking to the following guidelines. Number 1, listen for what is felt as well as what is said. When we listen, we connect more deeply to our own needs and emotions and to those of other people. Listening also strengthens us, informs us, and makes it easier for others to hear us when it's our turn to speak. Number 2 is making conflict resolution the priority rather than whining or assuming you are. Maintaining and strengthening the relationship rather than winning the argument or winning the argument would always be your first priority. Be respectful of the other person and his or her viewpoint. Number 3, always focus on the present. If you are holding on grudges based on past resentments, your ability to see the reality of the current situation will be impaired. Rather than looking to the past and to what happened in the past and assigning blame, focus on what you can do in the here and now in order to solve the problem. Number 4, learn to pick your battles. Conflicts can be draining, so it is important to consider whether the issue is really worth of your time and energy. Number 5, always be willing to forgive. Resolving a conflict is impossible if you are unwilling or unable to forgive. Resolution lies in releasing the urge to punish, which can never compensate for our losses and only adds to our injury by further depleting and draining our lives. Number 6, always know when to let something go. If you can't come to an agreement, you can't agree to disagree. It takes two people to keep an argument going. So, if you find that a conflict is going nowhere, you can choose to disengage and move on. The following are therefore the conflict management skills that you can apply in order to be able to manage conflicts well. Conflict management plays a very important role in preventing conflicts amongst you and other people. It arises when you or other individuals strongly oppose each other's opinions and ideas. A conflict starts when you or another person think on different lines and find it very difficult to accept the other's ideas. Conflicts must thus be avoided as it destroys the peace, lowers the productivity, as well as it motivates the individuals. You should therefore always explore all the factors leading to a fight and make efforts to prevent a conflict. This is because a conflict is not normally very easy to control, and thus you need certain skills for the same. The following are therefore some conflict management skills that you can be able to apply. Number 1 is having effective communication skills. Effective communication skills are of utmost importance to prevent conflicts. While interacting with others, you have to take special care of your speech and the way you speak. Never ever shout on anyone, even if you do not agree with him or her. Always speak in a polite but convincing manner and greet others with a warm smile. Also, always be very specific and precise in your speech without using complicated ones that may confuse others. Always keep control on your tongue and do not use ones which might hurt the sentiments of others, while you also avoid using abusive languages. Number 2 is to have listening skills. You should always avoid giving your expert comments unless and until you are very clear about what the other person wants. In addition, you should never just jump to conclusions and assume things on your own without listening to the other person. Don't jump into prejudging or into speaking out the mind of the other person, because you can never be the other person. And for that reason, always learn to listen, and you listen attentively without interruptions until the other person has spoken out his or her mind. Number 3 is discussion. Always avoid following the rumor mills blindly and never discuss rumors with others as well. Always note that whereas differences can crop up anytime, fighting would not provide any solution. It is therefore important to always sit down and discuss the issues with each other on an open forum. In addition, every party involved in any issue must always be given room to give their inputs, express their views, and also express their efforts. on the matter. And for this reason, all the participants should always be given room to give their inputs, and efforts must be made to find out an alternative. So, whenever there is any issue that concerns every individual, be always inviting all the members involved, and never ignore anyone, as it would never solve the problem. This is because everyone has a right to express his or her views, and a middle way has to always be found. Number 4 is patience. Always be patient whenever you are confronted with a challenge in order to avoid conflicts. This is because there will be people at your workplace and even at home who would try to provoke you to a fight, but always remain calm and think about the next move without any immediate response. In addition, never ever get influenced into doing anything without thinking, but always follow your instincts and support what is right while remaining sensible and patient. Always learn to keep a control on your emotions without ever losing your temper, as it would only make the situation worse. Number 5 is impartiality. Whenever you are involved in solving a conflict, always remain impartial without taking sides in order to avoid worsening the situation and avoid further conflicts. Therefore, even if you find out that your intimate friend is at the core of the conflict, do not support your friend, but treat both the parties as equals and give each of them equal and fair treatment so that you can help resolve the conflict amicably. Always stand by what is correct and never support what is wrong. Any individual, even if he or she is your friend, must be corrected if you feel that he or she is wrong. Listen to everyone and never ignore anyone just because you don't know him or her. Number 6, never criticize. Never criticize. Always avoid being judgmental, as you help make the other person understand if he or she is wrong. You should therefore avoid criticizing a person for the wrong done, as this would definitely hurt his or her sentiments. Always remember that whereas the other person might not be as intelligent as you are, you have no right to make fun of him or her, because others will look up to you if you guide them and make them realize their mistakes. Number 7, always have a positive attitude. It is always important to note that there is no human being that is perfect, and therefore you, as well as the other persons, are prone to making mistakes. So, if you do anything wrong at any time, be ready and courageous to accept the mistake, regardless of your status within the group, institution, or organization. In addition, always avoid playing the blame game, just as I have said severally in this presentation, by avoiding trying to put the blame on anyone else's shoulders. I'll also avoid backbiting as it only spoils the relationships. If you don't agree with anyone's views, discuss with him or her on his or her face, because he or she will like it, instead of this person hearing about the matter through a third party. In addition, don't always find faults in others, and be a little more adjusting, as life is all about adjustments. Number 8, ignore others. When you are in the process of managing or resolving a conflict that involves several parties, there are times when you must try to adopt the middle path approach, which considers the interests of one and all. For this to be possible, you don't unnecessarily waste your time and energy for a person who is too adamant from amongst all the others and is not willing to compromise at all. You may therefore realize the need to ignore someone that may be too demanding, as this would solve a half of your problems. Congratulations, my dear viewers and listeners, for gaining knowledge about conflict management for a peaceful coexistence. For more life skills, motivational, and inspirational resources, kindly visit Emily Swap Motivation YouTube channel and subscribe to it by clicking on subscribe button if you have not already done so. In addition, for you to be able to access various free resources in ICT or computer field, kindly visit Emily Swap ICT YouTube channel and subscribe to it too if you have not already done so. For any further suggestions, corrections, or queries in relation to this video or others that are posted in any of the above 2 YouTube channels, that is Emily Swap Motivation and Emily Swap ICT, feel free to write to us through the email emilyswap@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening to me, and be blessed.